Hey friends, a friend of mine asked me to comment on David Goggins, and I just watched one interview with him and Joe Rogan, and there was enough there for me to talk about kind of my own path and how I see I saw things very similarly as he did at one point. David Goggins is a guy that spent 6 years in the Air Force. He tried out for the pararescue, which is an elite special forces. Most people don't even know about it. But Navy SEALs, who are maybe the most well known and most well respected in the civilian world, have a lot of respect for pararescue guys. They go in and save down fighter pilots, and they have to do a lot of water work, and that's what usually knocks people out. David Goggins went through that twice, I believe, and then he went through SEAL Hell Week, I think, 3 times, and he spent 22 years, I believe, in the military, which is the amount of time I spent living military life. And as a child, he suffered abuse from his father, and he experienced racism. He was a black man in mostly white community that was pretty damn racist. They had KKK rallies. I think the KKK originated where he lived or something like that. So he experienced a lot of shitty things growing up. So there was trauma there, and that trauma affected him as a young man, and hearing the voice of his dad, hearing the voice of racism, it deflated him. But then he saw what he was. He saw where he was at. He didn't see his pain, but he saw the effects of his pain. And so he used anger to lose weight and use the fuel of the anger of racism to give him more energy to lose weight and to become more mentally tough. And he was on a dopamine cycle of eating and watching television all the time and drinking shakes and stuff like that. That's the way it sounds to me. Most of us are on some sort of dopamine cycle. Usually it's the phone or shopping or marijuana or even whatever. I'm not saying marijuana, just anything that is immediate satisfaction, right? And that immediate satisfaction can actually ruin our lives. It ruins most of our lives, actually, so that we never get what we truly want. And so David saw that. He saw that he wasn't where he wanted to be. He saw that he was the creator in his own life. And for him, the way out of that was anger. To me, that's a much better place to come from than being a victim. So when we have trauma, we can either stay in victimhood, which is where he was at, basically eating his trauma, right? Getting rid of it through entertainment and food. We usually eat our trauma and then like block our minds from being able to think about the trauma that's stored in our body. And instead of feeling into our body, we block the pain in our body and push it up to our head, and our head just never stops. So he was experiencing tremendous anxiety. So rather than just sit with that anxiety, he decided to move his body. Well, he had so much anxiety that he had to move his body much harder than most people need to move their body. And he became probably somewhat sadist masochistic, right? And like destroying himself. I mean, he talks about what so many things that he hurt on himself. He had by the end he had so much stress that he had a head tumor in the back of his head, a huge knot, and a tremendous amount of pain. And so basically he was like pulling himself this way. There was so much stress. He was like really bound up. His psoas was really tight and messed up. And he realizes now that yoga and stretching saved his life. I think he said he stretches 1 or 2 hours a day. I think he said 2 hours a day. That's huge. So here's a man that couldn't sit with his pain that now realizes that yoga and stretching, sitting with himself, still doing something, but sitting with himself is the key to his health, that he would have died. Those are his words. I would have died without it. It saved his life. So, David Goggins is on the path of awakening, in my opinion. He still doesn't see maybe the root of the pain necessarily. I don't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I think he does, in a way, at least. He at least spoke about it, so there's an awareness there. And David Goggins is going through a similar path as I did. I remember I had gone through enough pain by 11 years old that I had a conversation with my grandmother, and I was telling her how I was going to be the toughest man in the world. Well, it didn't start out that way. I was clomping through the house in these cowboy boots that we had got at a Goodwill or something. And she was like, learn to walk softer. And I said, well, I don't want to walk soft. And then she went into this big thing about Uncle Jim, my favorite uncle, can walk so soft that in cowboy boots that he could walk through a forest without disturbing the deer. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to be rough and tough. And she was like, there's always someone tougher. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be toughest. Well, wow. I had been through a lot of pain, so I wanted to be tough to guard my heart, right? And to block the pain. And David Goggins was no different. He wanted to be the toughest man in the world to guard his heart and block his pain. And we generally get what we wish for. But I would wish the wish that I wished for on no human. And I don't know if David feels the same, although I would not trade my experience for anything. I don't want to go back and go through it either. So maybe he's not there yet, but I think it's only because he's not at the next step yet, which is realizing where the pain comes from and then going after that. And the next step for him, in my opinion, or let me tell you, the next step for me was meditation. That's a step that he skipped that I got into that allowed me to begin to do a lot of things that he's doing from a place of love rather than a place of anger, and anger towards myself. I heard a lot of anger towards self. He said a lot of things that were not good towards himself, like don't be a fucking pussy, don't be a fucking piece of shit, which, by the way, if you use pussy as a derogatory term, that's bad. If you use it as a term to mean weakness, it's like the most malleable substance on earth. It takes a beating and keeps on ticking. You can't wear it out. So don't use pussy as not being tough. Pussy is way tougher than dick. Dick is way more sensitive, let's be honest. So, sorry, I just had to do that. So, anyways, that anytime that we can hear our own language, and I'm sorry, David, I don't want to call you out, dude. I love you, brother, and I see the path that you're on, and I see the hurt little boy in you just like I see the hurt little boy in me. And we all have that inside of us. And if we can recognize the language that we use about ourselves, we can recognize how we truly feel about ourselves, and we can go inside and find out where that comes from. I'm finding that basically with all of my desires also, or all of the things that I'm like really pinging for. Like, oh man, there's a lot of pain on another side of that pinging, and so I have been diving deeply into that, and anyways, there will be more to come about that. I love you guys. David Goggins, if you see this, I love you, brother. I would love to do yoga with you or meditate with you someday. And I think David Goggins is on the path of awakening. I feel like he has an understanding of where he's at. Now, if we were to get stuck in that place, or if he were, it sounds like he's leaving a lot of that anger, quite honestly. But if he were to get stuck in that place and not ever come to a place of self love and self care, which is what the stretching and the yoga is self love and self care. Now, he is doing it so he can continue to destroy himself. But I don't know that that's the motivation. Nobody knows anyone's heart. And a lot of people try to become the voice in someone else's head, and that's not okay either, because we're the only ones that can figure out our own shit. Some people can help us along the way, some people can guide us, some people are teachers, some people are mentors, but still it's all in us, and it has to align with us. We have to integrate anything that comes our way. And so there's no changing anyone else, there's only being of service. And I'm of service to myself, and if somebody asks me to do something and it aligns with me, then I'm of service to others also. I love you guys, and I look forward to more conversations. Thank you very much.